Hello and welcome to today's KDP University's At Home with Danielle James. I'm Trisha, and for the past 5 years, I've moved around Amazon's books teams, learning the business so I can share it with authors. Prior to coming to Amazon, I worked as a graphic artist, project manager, and educator. Currently, I'm privileged to work with the KDP University team, helping authors use the KDP website to make the most of their author journey. But we're all here to talk to Danielle. Danielle James is an independent romance author of over 30 titles, filled with steamy scenes, tension-filled drama, and unpredictable plot twists. Her most successful marketing tactic that we'll talk about today is grassroots marketing, which goes well beyond simple word of mouth and is absolutely invaluable for new releases. Danielle lives in Virginia with her husband of 9 years, 2 children, and their dog. When not typing news stories, she enjoys baking, creating graphics in Photoshop, and drinking copious amounts of wine and caffeine. Welcome, Danielle. How are you this
Hi,
morning?
I'm good. Thank you.
Good. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm really excited to talk to you about your marketing tactics.
I'm excited too.
Excellent. So, before we get started, we want a little bit of background. When did you decide that you were going to be a writer? How'd you get into this?
I actually knew I was going to be a writer when I was a kid. Um, I started writing stories when I was supposed to be doing classwork in school, and I would pass my stories around to my classmates and get in a lot of trouble because I stopped the whole class from learning and they were reading these stories that I wrote. And that's when I knew, I was like, okay, I have to do this. I have to be a writer.
So then, did you like come out of school and just go straight into publishing, or did you have another career first? Or
I actually began publishing when my friend introduced me to the indie author world that I didn't even know existed. We were having a conversation and I told her that I love to write. And she said, well, I have a lot of books you should check out. And there were all of these indie authors. And I was amazed that it was possible to self publish so easily. And it really inspired me to do it myself.
uh-huh. All right, we've got everybody doing that. Okay, good. All right. So so how long ago was that?
That was in 2016.
Okay, so not that long ago.
No.
About 5 years.
hmm
Yeah. Oh, good. So did you go straight full-time publishing, or were you working and writing and at the same time, or how was that
I
working?
I was working and writing at the same time. I actually had just started a job as a barista, and I found myself writing while I was at work. While we didn't have any customers, I would pull out my laptop or my phone, and I would start writing. So it wasn't full time at first, and things were slow. Sometimes it can feel like you're writing and nobody's reading, but with KDP, I noticed I didn't even need to have ads or anything. And I started to see sales and people were reading my books, and it was amazing.
So how did you manage that? I mean, a lot of authors, brand new authors, are like they struggle to start getting that exposure because there's a lot of books on Amazon. So how did you start getting
Yeah.
that exposure? What were some of the steps that you took?
Well, immediately I started connecting with authors in my genre, and I found that they were very helpful and they were friendly and willing to help get word of mouth out, which is how I discovered grassroots marketing, and that it can be a very powerful tool for new authors to use if you can find other authors in your genre, maybe on your same level of exposure, to help get a group together and you all promote each other. and get the word out. And that's
Okay. So let's talk a little bit when you're talking about grassroots, let's kind of define that.
grassroots essentially means that you build a network of people around you. You build a community that consists of authors and readers, and you all form an invaluable bond that helps everybody in the end. So it's essentially you helping other authors that are just like you and them helping you in turn. And you don't have to worry with ads if you don't know how to do that yet. It's very low cost, and you'll notice how quickly the community will grow around you, and everybody helps, and it's amazing.
So how did you find this community? How did you start building this?
Well, as I said, my friend gave me a list of books to read, and I found that I really liked those authors. And once I realized they were indie authors, they were easily accessible. They were right on Facebook, just like me, on social media. And I was able to reach out to them personally and say, hey, I loved your book. I'm writing a book too. Do you have any pointers? Do you have any tips? And everybody was so helpful. And they said,
Right.
hey, you can pop into my reader group. You can talk about your book here. And I have the same type of readers that you have. We write in the same genre. So feel free. And I did that, and that's how I started gaining readers.
And followers. So social media plays a huge part in your marketing strategy.
Absolutely. Social media plays a huge part. It's actually like one of the main components of my marketing strategy. I have a reader group, and it was very small at first. And little by little it started to grow. I put
Uh-huh.
links to my reader group in the back matter of my books so that people can click on it right from the ebook, and
Uh-huh.
it makes it so that I have organic readers and I'm not getting readers because I'm doing a contest, but that is also a great way to get readers. Um, so yeah, it's a lot of organic growth and people who actually like my books and
Uh-huh.
want to connect with me, and it helps to grow the
Right.
community.
So how quickly did it grow? We're talking 5 years. So what does that growth look like?
I would say a bulk of the growth happened in the first year, actually. Um, And it was amazing to see because when I first started, it felt like I was making social media posts and I was talking to the wall. Like it didn't feel like I was talking to anybody and nobody was interested. But little by
Uh-huh.
little, the more I connected with authors and they would talk about my books to their readers, I noticed more people wanting to come and see what my books were about. And
Mhm.
it really helped to grow my readership.
Now, you don't just so you do your marketing, but you do more than that. We heard in the intro that you do your covers and you do your formatting as well. So pretty much you're doing it all. So let's talk a little
Yes.
bit about some of that because I think that the authors that are joining us today, a lot of them are in that, beginning where they're doing everything themselves and they're trying to learn this all. So let's kind of talk through some of the things that you did, like let's start with your covers and talk about those. How do you design your covers?
Okay. Um, I start by visualizing my characters and the plot of the story, the feel that I want to convey. And then I look for photos that help me to convey that feeling. So I'm not trying to tell you what the whole story is about on the cover. I'm just trying to convey a certain feeling. And I go from there, and I design my covers based on the feel of the book, and it has to be eye catching and pretty colors and and attractive fonts. So it's definitely doable for a beginning author. There are lots of tools out there and tutorials that can help. I came into it with some graphic design knowledge already.
Okay.
Um, but that's the beautiful part about KDP and being an indie author is that I have that freedom and that creative, freedom that I can do my own covers and I can format my own books and I don't have to have a team telling me this is not good. We need to do this. I have control of it all, and it's very helpful. Very helpful.
Now, do you have a brand strategy? Like, do you use the same fonts for like your titles or your author names so people can look at that and say that is a Danielle James book?
I use the same font for my author name across all of my books. The fonts for the titles vary depending on the feel of the story. I like to think I have a particular style. Like if someone saw one of my covers, they would say, "Yeah, that's definitely a Danielle James cover."
Good, good. Do you use any particular software to design in? Do you prefer one over another, or have you tried a few different ones?
Yeah, I am loyal to Photoshop.
You and me both.
And the entire suite. Yeah, and so for formatting, I use InDesign, and
Okay.
for all of my graphics, I use Photoshop, and
Mhm.
I also get all my stock photos from Adobe. Everything's Adobe.
And that's a really good call out with the stock photos that when you use a stock photo to design a cover, you need to make sure that you're checking the terms and conditions, right? And you're purchasing them because we have people that'll go and grab something off the internet, but you can't just do that. Do we want to talk
Yeah,
about that?
no. Yes, you have to, you cannot just go. I've seen some people try to grab pictures off of Pinterest or Instagram, and you cannot do that. You have to get a royalty-free photo. You have to make sure that the licensing states that you can use it for sale,
Mhm.
and because you don't want any issues popping up. So that's why I get all of my stock photos from a specific place, so I know the terms and the model releases and all of that. So yeah, you
Mhm.
have to make sure that you get a legal photo. You cannot just pick anybody's picture off the internet, off of a Google search. It has to be a high quality, royalty-free photo.
Right. Right. So there's some investment, if you're not hiring somebody, you're still investing in your covers with your time and
Absolutely.
also making sure that the images that you're using, you can use for resale.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's an investment. With me doing my own covers is less of an investment than paying a cover designer because I do pay for a subscription for the photos monthly. Um, but it, it's a lot cheaper compared to having to pay someone to design it for me. And that's one of the things that
Right.
I love about being able to do my own cover.
Right. Right. So what about your formatting, the interior formatting? You say you do that on your own as well. Is that something that you had to learn, or is that something that you said you had some graphic experience, but I'm guessing there was a bit of a learning curve.
There was definitely a learning curve with formatting. Designing came very easy, but the formatting is definitely a science because you have to deal with the margins and the bleeds and the gutter. And if you don't position things right, pages could get cut off, especially for paperback.
Right.
So when you're formatting, there's definitely a learning curve, but I managed to do better as the years went on. And now I kind of have it down to a science.
So, what are some of the things? Where'd you find the information? Did you just go to the help pages, or were there resources that you used, or how'd you figure that out?
Tutorials. So looking up videos on YouTube and just working on it until it looked the way that I wanted it, until it looked the way that I saw other authors had their professional formatting done. And I said, I want mine to look like that. And until it looks like that, I'm not going to be happy. So I just kept working on it until I got it the way that I wanted it, until it looked professional, and then I was comfortable with it.
Right. Right. Okay, let's get to kind of your writing process. Let's talk a little bit about your writing process. So, are you a plotter or are you a pantser?
Pantser. All the way pantser. I admire people who are plotters, and who can organize everything. I'm a hot mess and my mind is all over the place. So usually my characters pop into my head and they talk and they talk and they won't shut up until I write their story. And I usually don't know what's going to happen myself. Readers are like, well, what's getting ready to happen? I'm like, I don't know. We'll find out together because my characters talk to me and I kind of just tell their story.
See, I find that amazing. I'm just always amazed when people tell me that they can sit down and then all of a sudden have this beautiful story on the other end. So you go through and you write your first draft, and then what do you do after your first draft? Do you send it to an editor? Do you edit yourself? What does that look like?
I edit myself. So I'm a one woman show. I do the covers, the formatting, the editing. Um, so I am very good with grammar and English. Thanks to my mom, she actually worked at the Library of Congress, so I have this instilled in me, and so I do after my first draft, I set my story to the side for a while, and then I come back maybe days or a week later and then I start the editing process. And that's usually how I do it. I sit, first draft, I just pour everything out of my brain exactly how it is. And then I go back and I do my revisions and my formatting after I've taken a break from it. Because you can't just go right after you type the end and say, okay, now I'm going to edit. You have to take a mental break.
Right. I think that that's key in graphics as well as writing because your brain's going to tell you what it thinks is there instead of what's really there if you don't take that break.
Yes, and it's absolutely the same with graphics. I've stared at covers for hours and I've driven myself crazy and I'm like, okay, this doesn't look right. And I'm like, I have to step away, close the computer, and then I come back and I'm like, oh, that's actually nice. Okay, I'm gonna leave it like that.
Right. With graphics, I people make fun of me, but I turn my stuff upside down because then my brain is telling me if it's balanced, if it's the right color combinations, things like that. I do that for all of my designs.
Yeah, yes. And honestly, it's the same with editing. Sometimes you have to jump around in your pages. You can't necessarily read it, the way that you wrote it. Sometimes you have to skip around and say, okay, now I'm going to pick page 200. And sometimes it helps to have maybe a spreadsheet with all of your page numbers out of order. And you go along and you look at each page out of order so that your brain is forced to check for mistakes or sometimes maybe change the font so that your brain snaps out of it and can pick up mistakes. Otherwise, we're on autopilot and we don't necessarily see the things that we need to change.
Right. So if you're doing your own editing, do you have pre-readers? Do you have people that read before you publish?
I absolutely do. I have a small, trustworthy team of beta readers, and I have a couple of people who actually read my stories as I'm writing them in word processor because I have the
Oh,
app that's
wow.
on my phone. It clouds everything. And so if I invite them to read, they can read as I write and they tell me if the story is good, if, maybe I need to change this or the character doesn't feel right and I can fix it as I'm writing it and it's awesome.
Oh, that's amazing. I haven't, you're the first one I've heard that does that. That shares it that early. Some people are really leery about doing that, but if that helps you in your writing process, that's fantastic.
Yeah, it has to be somebody really trustworthy though, because
Right.
you can't trust everybody with your work. So I do.
Uh-huh.
I have like two really trustworthy people who can read as I write, and they know my writing style, and they know if it's good, and they can help me before I even get to the editing process.
Right. Right. Going back to that community we were talking about, you obviously take advantage of that community and have really built your strategy around that community, which allows you to do it, I'm sure, more cost effectively.
Absolutely. I'm not very ad savvy, although I'm working on it, but I'm not very ad savvy. So having a community of people, readers, authors that I trust really helps me out so much. And you have to know your genre and you have to know your readers and their likes and dislikes to be able to build that type of community for your books and yourself.
Okay. So we've designed the cover, we've written the book, we've formatted the book, and now we're getting ready to publish. Let's talk a little bit about your metadata, when your title, your blurb or description, things like that, or your categories, and keywords, all of those really play into making your book discoverable. What do you do? How do you do all that?
Keywords were very tricky for me at first, until I got to know sort of the lingo and what people were looking for. And it goes back to knowing your genre, knowing your readers, and what they type in when they look for a book on Amazon. And once I got that together, it was easier for me to type out my keywords. So, I could niche it down to a point where, okay, this is my book right here. If you type this in, this is going to pop up. My book is going to pop up. So it really comes down to knowing your genre and exactly what you write. If you write paranormal, do you write vampires? Do you write, so you have to know what you're writing. And it also helps to carve out a niche for yourself. So I write romance, but sometimes it can be dark. So I will type in dark romance instead of just contemporary because it helps to narrow it down to readers who are looking for what you write specifically.
Exactly, exactly. And that helps with the building that author following, that what you talked about, finding those readers and then making sure that they know what to expect when they open it, right? So if somebody's looking for something light and fluffy or a fun read, and you've got something that's dark and intense, then this is not going to be a good fit. So being upfront and honest in the
Exactly.
beginning really helps with that.
Yes, exactly. And here again, it speaks to that community. If you have a community of people who, loves dark and loves intensity and angst, then you know how to properly market that book at that point and who your readers are and what they're looking for. So I would never market it as just, happy romance, contemporary. I have to use specific words that speak to what's inside of my book because I don't want any shock. I mean, I didn't expect to read this, so I have to give people what they're looking for.
Right. Because if you know your readers and you know what they're looking for and you're writing towards that, then your reviews are going to be better, right? Because to your point, you're not going to have somebody that borrows the book and leaves a review that says this is not what I was expecting.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. That's a big part of it. Give the readers what they're expecting and don't try. And it also speaks to the covers. Your covers have to match what your book is
Right.
about. If it's a really dark and intense book and you're using pinks and whites, and someone who's looking for something sweet might pick it up and say, no, this is not what I expected at all. So you have to make the covers match the inside and the insides match your readers. And it's really about pairing things up and knowing your book and your genre.
hmm So how much of you do you put in it, right? So we've been talking about writing for the readers and things like that, but how much of yourself, how do you find that balance where you're writing for yourself, but also writing for the readers?
Um, it's easy for me because my readers tend to reflect my sense of humor, my thoughts, and they get me, so to speak. So, being that I built this type of community around myself, I know what they like because they like what I like most of the time. And I do end up putting a lot of myself in my books, especially where it concerns music. I write about, playlists or the characters are listening to this type of music. And that also helps with my writing process. I'm like, okay, what kind of music profile does this book have? What kind of feel? Is it old school? Is it new? Is it
Mhm.
R&B? What is it? So that's definitely a huge part of myself that I put into all of my books is the music, and it
Mhm.
really helps to set the tone for the story.
All right, so we've done all the front work. We've published now. We've got our keywords, categories, and everything good. What kind of marketing do you start doing at that point?
So I usually start with I start a buzz. I will start teasing and I let readers know I'm working on this story. I can't wait for you to meet these characters. I tend to introduce them to the characters first, and I will show them what I call muses. And I find, pictures that are legal that that I can share with them about, this is what this character looks like in my head. And so from there, people are interested. They're like, well, what are you writing? And then I will share an excerpt, maybe a short paragraph or two in my reader group and get them really interested. And then from there, I will do a cover reveal and I will show everybody the cover and the blurb simultaneously. And the blurb has to be on point so that people know what to expect from the story. And the cover reveal and the blurb usually really gets readers excited.
Uh-huh.
And from then on, every day, I post maybe a teaser graphic that has, a picture that relates to that scene, and I'll pull a sentence or a quote and I'll use it in conjunction with the image and I'll post it everywhere on all the social media platforms. And people, along with the release date, and people will really get excited for it. And I do it up until release day, and it really works well.
Do you do pre-sales at all, or
I just started doing pre-sales before. It's so easy to just publish with KDP that I often do it. It's so reliable. You can hit publish and the next day it's live. And so sometimes I will just tell my readers it's going live on this day. I will hit publish the day before and it goes live, no issues. And but for my latest book, I did a pre-sale and it was insanely popular. And I was shocked. I said I need to do pre-sales more often. So I
Mhm.
would do a pre-sale maybe, I think I did a pre-sale about a couple of weeks before the release date. Not too far in advance because I wanted to keep it fresh in people's minds. So
Mhm.
it worked out well, very well.
Oh, good, good. Now, we've talked about social media, but we haven't talked about what channels that you do for social media. Is it just Facebook? Is it Twitter? Which ones do you use?
The biggest platform for me is Facebook because of the power of groups. Um, and you get that community. I post in my group at least once a day, but on a good day, I try to post 2 to 3 times a day throughout the day. And it's
Uh-huh.
not always book related. We have conversations. I post funny memes and, I ask questions and it really gets a dialogue going that's not just
Hmm.
surrounding books because you want to build a relationship with your readers. You don't want them to feel like you're always like, buy my stuff. And they've really become actual friends. Like we talk about all kinds of things, and it's a really easygoing relationship. So that when there is a book release, I can say, "Hey guys, this is coming out," and you create trust. And
Uh-huh.
they're like, "Okay." And since they know that you're not trying to sell them, you really want to bring them into your world. They're more apt to support you. And so Facebook is a huge, platform for me. And then Instagram, because of the covers, they're eye catching. Instagram is, very visual. So
Hmm.
I utilize Instagram for my covers. I'm not as Instagram savvy as I should be, but it is an amazing platform to bring eyes to your book. And
Uh-huh.
another platform that I use is Pinterest. I go and
Oh,
I
okay.
create a Pinterest board, and it's sort of like a mood board for each book that I do. And I'm doing it, it helps me
Oh.
with the writing process as well. And I'll look for pictures or quotes, and I'll make this board of hundreds of pins and right on release day, I upload the cover to my Pinterest board and I unlock it and I send the link to my reader group on Facebook and I say, if you guys are interested, here is the board for this book. And it gets them even deeper into the story. They can see pictures, they can read quotes, and they're like, okay, I'm really into this now. It becomes an entire world.
Right. Do you do a newsletter as well?
I actually don't. I treat my reader group kind of like my newsletter, and I talk directly to them instead of sending them an email that I'm not sure if they'll open or not. And so
Right.
instead, I will do announcements in my reader group, and I'll put it right at the top of the group so everybody could see it, and I'll update them on what's coming up and what I have going on. And I know that it's read because Facebook actually tells you it's reached this many people, and I can see comments in real time, and they can ask me questions. And to me, I prefer the reader group actually over over a
Okay.
newsletter at this point.
Well, you know what? It's prioritizing your time, right? So if you're doing all of this, you have limited time. Otherwise, you're never going to be writing. And then this
Yeah,
allows you to do that.
absolutely.
So you talked about advertising. You touched a little bit on advertising, and you said you're just starting to get into it. Uh, are you using it for your backlist? Are you using it for your launches? How are you using it?
Launches because I want to get those eyes on my most recent book and drive the sales. So for my backlist, I put a whole backlist in all of my books and I update it with each release so
Okay.
people can see what else I have. And they can click on it right from the right from the ebook and it'll take them to buy it. So I focus ads mainly on new releases.
Okay. So where are you going to learn about how to use ads? Because there's a bit of a learning curve.
There's definitely a learning curve. I hear your YouTube and tutorials and any type of webinars that I can attend, and also other authors who do their ads really well. I will reach out to them. I have no problem reaching out to somebody and saying, "Hey, I don't know what I'm doing. Can you help me? You seem to be doing really well." And it's easier to do that when you do build a community of authors around you and they're willing to
Mhm.
help.
And I think that's a great call out. You can't be shy for asking for help in this community.
No,
And people are so giving. They really are.
they are. It warms my heart every time. I'm like, wow, you guys are willing to help. And it's a really nice feeling to know that people will gather around you and support and uplift you.
Exactly. All right. Um, all right, we've got some questions coming in. So if you don't mind, we'll switch to the questions that people are asking, if you're good with that.
Okay. Yep.
All right. Um, so this is a really good question. We've talked about the fact that you design your own covers, you format your own interiors, you write your books, and how often do you publish a new book?
I would say I publish a new book once a month or once every other month. Lately, since the pandemic has hit, it's been probably once every other month. But usually, it's once a month. I publish once a month.
Okay, so everybody's asking, how do you do this, right? So you have a family, right? You're
Mhm.
writing, you're
Yep.
doing everything yourself. How do you manage to publish on that quick of a schedule? It's amazing.
It's I always tell people when they ask me that, I'm like, I'm insane. That's how that's how I managed to do this is because I'm
Do you
absolutely
sleep at
insane.
all?
Um, Sometimes I slept once in the 90s and it was a nice nap. Yeah, I write every single day and I have to get in some words, even if it's a few hundred words. I write really fast. So a lot of times I am hitting 5 to 10,000 words a day, and I write when I'm doing everything. So if I'm folding laundry, I have my phone and I'm getting in some words, on my Microsoft Word app, and I'm writing, and it clouds to my computer so I can pick up where I left off. If my husband is driving somewhere, I'm in the passenger seat and I'm writing on my phone. I do my local farmers market. In between me having customers, I'm writing. And so it adds up throughout the week, and it makes the process go a lot quicker. And sometimes it seems like it's going slow, and then I'm like, oh, I have a whole book and I'm finished now. So it really
So,
helps when you just sneak in times to write.
right, 15, 20 minutes there, it really does add up.
Mhm.
How long are your
Yeah.
books? How many pages?
They usually range from 300 to 400 pages. I tend to write pretty lengthy books, maybe 80 to 100,000 words. Usually,
Uh-huh.
sometimes it can go a little over, sometimes a little under. I also do novellas, which are, shorter versions of books. They are about between 30 to 50,000 words. I write those if I feel like I want to put something out, and the story maybe is not as in depth as one of my normal stories, or it could be an offshoot of another character from another story that I want to tell their story. So, but yeah, my books are usually pretty lengthy, I would say.
Okay. Um, I'm sorry, I'm still completely amazed that you are able to publish that frequently and have books that are that long. That's just, it boggles my mind. That's a good for you. Um, so what app are you using if you're writing on your phone? Do you have something in particular? Is it just the, text app that comes with the phone or?
I use Microsoft Word. They have this app called OneDrive, and
Uh-huh.
you can download it to your phone, and it clouds all of your documents from your computer to your phone or any device that you have the app on. And so
Uh-huh.
I'm able to write directly from, my computer. Sometimes I bring it right to my phone or vice versa. And that has helped me a lot because I also, in the morning, as soon as I wake up, I read over what I wrote the previous day, and I'm already making changes in my head and editing in my brain as I go along. And then if I need to write before I walk the dog, I'm like, let me get in a few words here. So I definitely would recommend, if you want to write more and get more words in during the day, maybe try using OneDrive and writing your words and clouding everything.
Uh-huh. And like you mentioned, you can share it with other people as well. It doesn't just, it's just not yours. You
Yeah.
can share that. Yeah, which is helpful.
Yep, you can
Well,
share. Other people can write. If you have an editor, your editor can
uh-huh.
also make changes as you write too.
So you we kind of touched on where I wanted to go with this next topic about, I was trying to figure out if you're writing like 15 minutes here, 20 minutes here, and you're a pantser, how do you make sure that the flow is correct and you're not going completely off topic, and all of a sudden you've written, 1,000 words and it's like, okay, that chapter goes nowhere and I'm totally off, I'm totally out in left field. How do you make sure that it's cohesive?
It happens. The story pours out of me in order. I write in order. I don't skip around. And like I said, I do go back every day and read over what I wrote so I know where to pick up and
Okay.
continue. So in the mornings when I wake up, instead of social media, I'm reading what I wrote the previous day. And I'm like, okay, I know exactly where these characters want me to take this now. So, and then I start writing.
Okay. So we have some questions coming in. You use Facebook. Do you do any Facebook ads or advertising on Facebook, or you just use your group?
I just use my group, and I am also a part of several author groups who help as well. And I've made some real life author friends who help too, and I can talk to them. And So yeah, I utilize Facebook and Facebook groups, my author page on Facebook, even my personal page. A lot of readers send me friend requests to my personal page, and I talk about my books there too. And sometimes it reaches a wider audience than actually my author page on Facebook. So people are
Okay.
interested.
So how do you balance that, your privacy versus what you share on social media? Do you have any concerns with that?
I don't, because I'm the same on my personal page as I am in my groups, and people already know what to expect from me. They know I'm crazy. They know I'm a hot mess. They know I like to laugh. So it's the
Right.
same. I don't have a different writer, author personality. I'm the same on my personal page as well.
What you see is what you get, kind of a thing.
Hmm. Absolutely.
All right. Sorry. So we have a few questions coming in about editing. We've heard from other authors the danger of editing your own stories, that it can be really, really tricky. Is there any concern that maybe if you got an editor at this point, the quality would be better, or you feel that that's not a concern for you?
Um, Getting a professional editor, sometimes it scares me because I know my work very intimately. And I
Right.
also am very hard on my writing, so I don't tend to let things slide. And I'm very inclined toward English and grammar and things of that nature. I'm a perfectionist, and I like to weed out anything and any mistakes. And so if people aren't that inclined towards grammar and English and everything, I would definitely say to get a professional editor. But I know my books very intimately. I would be afraid at this point to hand it off to an editor who maybe was not familiar. Like, oh no, we don't understand it, because I like to keep my books on brand and the same tone, and
Right.
so I wouldn't
Well,
mind getting an editor at this point.
I think that you've created a different solution that works for you. So,
Yeah,
if it's not broke.
right.
You mentioned that you find images that look like your characters, also from Adobe. So you pull those from Adobe. We've got some questions coming in about that.
Yes, absolutely. You want to make sure, like I said, that you are able to use these pictures. And even though when I share my muses, I'm not selling anything, I still like to have, that security of knowing that I can use this image.
Right, right. And by the way, for those of you who are joining us, Adobe is not the only site. There are tons of sites out there that you can purchase images from for retail, for promotion, for marketing, everything like that. But you
Absolutely.
definitely want to make sure that you have the right permissions to use them in the way that you're using it.
Absolutely. Yeah. Shutterstock is another really good site that I like. I really like the quality. I'm very big on quality, so it has to be very high quality images, and very eye catching. So there are tons of places that you can get images like that from.
So do you publish in both ebook and paperback? And did you start publishing in both formats?
I mainly publish ebook because I do all my own paperback formatting as well, and sometimes it can be time consuming. As I get around to it, I put, ebooks in paperback as well. I'm trying to work my way down my backlist and and put more books in paperback, because I have some readers who only read paperback and they're like, when is this
Right.
coming to paperback? So, I try to make my way down the list and put them in paperback. So I do both.
Uh-huh. So we have some questions. When you first started publishing, did you sell books right away, or like was your first book just kind of sitting there for a while and it wasn't until like the second or third that you started getting readers?
My first book was a part of a series. It was a part of a 6-book series. It seemed like it wasn't selling. I think I maybe sold a few, like several. To me, at that point, it was huge. I was like, oh my gosh, like 10 people read my book. So it started off slow, but it started picking up. Once the series was completed, I noticed people wanted to read a completed series. They don't like waiting. So once the series was completed, I noticed that sales started to pick up, and I was happy about that. And it continued to pick up from there. Um, so yeah, it took a little while.
So we have some questions. Do you use KDP Select and list your books in Kindle Unlimited, or do you go wide?
I am exclusively KDP, so all of my books are on Kindle Unlimited as well. I find that that helps to boost your readers, your pages read, and you can reach a wider audience with your books in Kindle Unlimited because not everybody has the funds, and you can, get your books read, and people don't have to feel the guilt of purchasing every single book, and they can read at their leisure. So I definitely recommend Kindle Unlimited, putting your books in Kindle Unlimited.
Um, what about audiobooks? Have you looked at publishing audiobooks yet, or is that like sometime in the future, maybe?
It is in the works currently. I definitely am looking into getting several of my books in the audiobooks, and I am very excited about it. So they're not published yet, but I'm working on it. I'm talking with someone now, and she's great, and she's helping me, and so we're going to get those audiobooks out soon.
And I think that that's great. You know, we talked about the fact that you've been publishing for 5 years and it's a process. I think that the mistake is that some new authors think that they have to have everything right now. And I think that that's the challenge is being able to understand what you can do and then slowly build that.
Yeah, everything's not going to happen right away, and you have to be okay with that. Sometimes you can just do the ebooks until you figure out paperbacks, and just start where you're at and go from there.
What was for you, what was the most surprising thing that you found when you started self-publishing?
I think I was surprised that people actually wanted to read what I wrote and they wanted more. And then after I started publishing, it was surprising that no matter how many books I publish, I still get nervous. I still get jitters on release day, and I still worry about the reviews. Are people going to like it? So that never goes away.
Well, I think that that makes it exciting too. So I don't think I would ever want
Yeah.
that to go away. Okay, so we have a question. What is your best piece of advice for somebody who's just brand new and starting out?
Um, Definitely reach out to other indie authors in your genre and start a trustworthy and meaningful relationship with them, and be honest and be yourself, and tell them that you're looking to do better with your promoting or marketing. Just be upfront with them and try to uh, get a little community of other indie authors around yourself, definitely.
Okay. Um, there was one more. Sorry, I lost the question that I wanted to ask next. Okay, let's go back to categories. That's what it was. Let's go back to your categories. I think brand new authors sometimes struggle to figure out what their subgenre is. What's your best advice to somebody who's trying to figure out what their subgenre is?
Um, I would say it helps to, in addition to being a writer, to be a reader. And if you have read other books that are similar to what you write, then you can kind of look at what their subgenre is, and that might help you out as well. Or maybe other authors that write in your genre, and see what they're kind of doing. That's what I had to do, because I didn't necessarily know that what I wrote was not just contemporary romance at first. I didn't know
Okay.
that until I started paying attention to other books that were in the same vein as what I wrote. And I was like, oh, so this is considered dark. Okay. This is considered emotional or angsty. And I had to learn that as I went along because I had no idea. So definitely being a reader as well as a writer helps so that you can pinpoint things like that.
And I think that's also a great way to find those other authors. If you read something that you're like, I love this and they do this really, really well, reach out to them.
Absolutely, absolutely. Most of the authors on Amazon that publish through KDP are easily, found on social media, and they love talking to other authors and readers and everything. So it's very easy, but you do have to put yourself out there, and it can be kind of hard because I know a lot of writers are introverts, and I am one, and I'm shy, and so sometimes it's hard, but just know that other authors are also feeling the same way. They're shy and they're introverted as
Mhm.
well.
Yeah, I can't tell you the number of authors that I've talked to that are like you just said, shy and introvert. Give me my cup of coffee or my glass of wine and
Hmm.
my writing, and I'm happy as a clam.
Yep, yep.
All right. Um, we are actually at time. I want to find one more really great question, see if I can um, come up with one more. What do you feel has been your single most successful strategy and why?
Definitely, definitely other indie authors that are not like you don't want to go after like an indie author that's doing huge numbers. You want to find somebody who is around the same range as yourself. If you're just starting out, you want to find other authors in your genre just starting out because they will be more likely to help you brainstorm, or maybe somebody who sold slightly more than you, who has more experience that you can talk to. Um, that was my most invaluable strategy, was that very first author who was willing to talk to me and say, it's fine, you'll be fine, this is what you need to do, or come on into my group, or I'll promote this for you. And I was so relieved and so grateful. I had no idea people would be so generous. So definitely finding other authors on your same level and reaching out to them and talking to them.
Do you ever go to conferences or do you join conferences or anything like that?
Yes, I do. My local library has a writers conference every year, actually, in November, and it's free. And they have other authors who do workshops, and they talk to you about, your characters, plotting, editing. And so I would look locally too and see what you can find around you. You'd be surprised. There are writers groups everywhere, and you
Mhm.
can physically sit with somebody and talk to them, and that helps as well. And there are bigger conferences. I did a book signing, and book signings are amazing. You get to talk to so many authors and readers face to
Right.
face, and I miss doing those. We haven't been able to do them lately, but
I
I
know.
miss being able to connect, and
Uh-huh.
so yeah, definitely look at conferences and workshops. Those are very helpful.
Mhm. All right, we are at time. Thank you so much. The information that you shared today was incredibly generous. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Now, if somebody wants to find you on Facebook, where are they going to find you?
You can find me on Facebook. My author page is author Danielle James on Facebook. On Instagram is at Miss Danielle James, and it's the same on Pinterest. And I'm always open to friend requests on Facebook. So I'm Danielle James on Facebook, or author Danielle James on Facebook.
And otherwise, happy publishing, y'all.